Rise and shine.
Thanks for staying tuned. There's a lot more conversation we wish we could have had on Rise and Shine this morning. Serious things are happening in the country, and we're trying to diversify our conversation. One conversation we'll definitely bring is that of energy. We are trying to diversify our energy sources. We're trying to see how we can use renewed energy, sources and all of that. And we have joining us this morning on a very short window of time, Itoro Atakpa, who is a clean energy and sustainability consultant this morning. Good morning, Itoro Atakpa. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We definitely are going to have you again to have this conversation because we're absolutely out of time. But just holistically, what is the concept of clean energy about? Because this is a conversation we've continued to have globally. It's like on the front burner of energy conversation globally. So what is cleaner energy, green energy all about?
So clean energy is energy sources that emit low amounts of carbon or no carbon. And when I talk about carbon, normally I'm referring to carbon dioxide, which is emitted when you burn hydrocarbons or fossil fuels like oil, coal, and natural gas. So by shifting over to cleaner energy sources, we can mitigate the greenhouse gas effect, which causes the warming of the earth, and try and mitigate climate change.
So climate change is like the basic fights that we are all up against. And I think it was in the administration of the former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo who said, we're not just, the atmosphere, the stratosphere is not just heating up anymore, it's boiling. And I think Tedros Ghebreyesus said the same thing, we are boiling currently. But what are, some of the diversifications, what are some of the specifics that we need to do to move from where we currently are to greener energy? And for Nigeria, how feasible is this?
For Nigeria, it will be a long journey. It's not difficult to make a quick switch, especially when we don't have the investment, we don't have the infrastructure, and we don't have the same domestic expertise that a lot of other wealthy nations in the north have. So in Nigeria, we have the National Energy Transition Plan, which sets out Nigeria's plan for decarbonization through 2060. In the short term, there will be a lot of focus on natural gas because it's a resource that we have in abundance. It's a resource that we understand how to produce and how to work with. And in the meantime, we're gradually going to need to build up our capacity for solar energy especially, and other forms of renewable energy as well.
Speaking of gas, yes, we have it in abundance, but it doesn't look like we're, rightfully tapping the resource of gas, as it were. Sometimes we're just flaring it, and we're not properly storing, and we're not also properly harnessing it. In the context of Nigeria, how can we even move to storing and proper usage before we go to the big global conversation on it?
Again, it comes back to investment, and with natural gas, even though we have it in abundance, it is very, very expensive to build natural gas systems in Nigeria because the pipelines and the equipment are very expensive, and oftentimes we're importing them. In fact, we're importing almost all of that equipment and we're paying for it in dollars. So it takes a lot of money to be able to build a system, get the permits, get the appropriate licensing. So it will require a lot of private investment in order to scale up natural gas systems. And we're really going to need to create an enabling environment for investors, providing things like tax incentives, grants, guarantees that will make investors more excited about coming into this space.
So with energy transition plan on the national level, is there a way that state and local governments are being inculcated to be a part of the journey? Like you established already, it's going to be a long journey for Nigeria, but if we start the conversation on time, bring the state government and the local government on board on time, how long do you think that we would all be speaking the same language with the transition plan?
That is an excellent question, and I don't think I can really say how long it will take. It's very difficult to predict what governments will actually commit to and then follow through on. But I am really excited about the Electricity Act, which has enabled states, private businesses, and individuals, exactly, to generate and distribute power. And so I think that is an opportunity that I would like to see Akwa Ibom leverage. And yet again, I'm going back to the question of investment, because this is really the major roadblock for clean energy here in Nigeria, is the money. Where are we going to get the funds from?
Currently, in your space of work, do you think that there is a willingness on the part of the federal government and even private organizations to invest in this sector? Are you seeing any body language that looks like we're going to have investors coming soon?
I think investors are interested, investors are looking, and in the solar space, they're starting to get pretty excited about the removal of fuel subsidies, because fuel is becoming very expensive, solar is becoming a lot more competitive. And so I think you're starting to see people positioning themselves to enter the space, but they need a little bit more assurance. You have early investors who are willing to take more risk, and then you have the more conservative ones who still have concerns about, you know, the currency, the credit worthiness of the country, the political instability, or at least the perceived political instability, and so on.
So on the value chain of energy transition, what's the value, what's the benefits that everyday Nigerians are going to get? Because sometimes when we have these kinds of conversation, it goes over the head of, you know, everyday Nigeria. It looks like something for the elite. It's the elite that will first of all, you know, benefit from this energy transition. So how does it come down to, you know, the everyday man in the country? What should they know? What should they understand? And how can they position themselves for this transition that will eventually come?
Well, this is where the conversation of justice comes in. You hear a lot about the just transition, which talks about, one, bringing folks along who already have their livelihoods and their assets tied up in the oil economy. And two, bringing access to people for the first time who don't have energy access. Nigeria's energy deficit is 43%. 43% of the population doesn't have access to basic tier 1 technology. And so we really want to ideally be deploying small clean energy systems to these populations first, whether that be small systems that can only handle charging and lighting, or larger community level systems like mini grids.
Okay, so we're about to just wrap up sustainability in like a few seconds. How sustainable is this transition plan, and what do we have on the ground that will help us run?
As far as how sustainable the transition plan is, it really is going to depend on how exactly it's implemented, what materials are used, what stakeholders are brought in. So it's a difficult question to answer in one sentence.
In one sentence. I know. We definitely will have you back to have this conversation when we have more time to break down the narrative, because it's quite a robust one, so that we're not lost in the pipeline. But of course, we've been speaking to Itora Atakwa this morning. She's an energy consultant who is, you know, basically burdened with driving that transition conversation to greener and, you know, proper energy for Nigeria, as it were. But this is where we need to draw the curtains. Thank you so much for coming on the show and enlightening us in this short time that we had.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's where we're going to draw the curtains on Thursday's edition of Rise and Shine. It's been a robust conversation. We'll return to your screens tomorrow, Friday. My name remains Uyai Aneka. Thanks for being a part of this, and enjoy the rest of your day.